Good evening. Good evening, and welcome to the Richard Leroi Show. I'm your host, Richard Leroi, and before I begin, I always like to say thank you for watching me, because you could be watching anything else, but you're watching me, and I appreciate you for that. I love when I see you guys on the streets and you tell me how good of a job I do on the show, or you give me ideas or suggestions on what I can do with the show. This month we started the show off, this is Black History Month. And we started off with the Little Rock Nine. If those of you who know the historical significance of that, is that those kids were, I think, the first kids to get integrated into white schools, and they had to actually be escorted to school by the National Guards. Now, me with my thinking, I'm thinking, I don't want to go to a school where somebody doesn't want me there that bad. And I am one who always says, I think when I look historically at our people and how we have failed in the educational system, that integration with desegregation has hurt us. And it has been a detriment to our academic abilities. But I'm not going to talk about that by myself. Today I have brought on a guest, a very, very good dear friend of mine, who kind of at the end of his reign was like, you know what, Rich, I'm going to let you hang out with me for a little while, and I'm going to show you how some of this stuff goes. I'm going to show you how some of the meetings go and how things get done and how much stuff goes on behind the scenes that you don't see on the other side. So without no further ado, I would like to introduce you guys to Mayor, ex-Mayor, Honorable James Baker.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you doing?
Very good. Very good.
I first want to say to you publicly, thank you for the tutelage that you gave me and some of the advice that you have given me when I struggled with my business and stuff like that. And you told me just hang in there, and that things would get better, and encouraging me and allowing me to shadow you for the time that I did, because I did get a lot of experience. So thank you for that.
A lot of people don't really get a view of government and how it really is, and a lot of work.
Now, with this opening statements that I made, right, as far as education and desegregation in the Little Rock, how do you personally feel about that?
Well, I was with a group that took another position legally. We filed a amicus with the court during the 70s when they were doing the deseg case.
Okay.
Our feeling is that busing was more detrimental. It was not beneficial.
Okay.
And that just to say desegregate the schools and we'll bus kids all over the place was not the way to, quote, integrate our society just by taking kids and putting them here and putting them there.
Right.
So, no, I think it was very detrimental. It destroyed our neighborhoods. It destroyed our connection with education and our children, because our children started leaving home early in the morning.
Right.
In the wintertime, it was totally dark. And then they were getting home when it was totally dark, and people didn't have a chance to sit down and engage with their children and to work with them. So there wasn't really a great thought about how do you do this, because when there is a decision by the Supreme Court, they have to also give a remedy. What is the remedy to fixing the problem?
Now, this is Brown v. Board of Education, right?
They have to give a remedy.
Okay.
And that's where busing came up as a remedy, because it was simplistic when you really look at it. It's complicated in terms of how you get kids to where they got to go and all like that.
Right.
But it's simplistic in the sense of not looking at the economics, not looking at the housing patterns, not looking at the integration of the society, as opposed to let's just get some African American kids and some Hispanic kids and white kids in the same room, and we'll call that a successful model. And it wasn't. It was a terrible model. Okay. Now, was all of desegregation bad? No. There was a necessity to break down segregation in this society. Okay. And how they did it is the issue. If you look at all of the efforts after the Civil War, it only lasts for a little while before the majority community gets upset with the methodology of change. Okay. If you look at the Civil War, they set up the Freedmen's Bureau. And the Freedmen's Bureau was to help the 4 million former slaves adjust into American society through jobs, housing.
Is that where we're supposed to get our 40 acres and a mule?
No, that didn't pass. Okay. They tried that. That didn't pass.
Okay.
But anyways, the Freedmen's Bureau lasted for a couple of years, and then there was a reaction to it to get rid of it, and they and they stopped it. But so very few African Americans got help through the Freedmen's Bureau.
Okay.
And Howard High School and Howard University is actually named after the person who ran the Freedmen's Bureau.
Otis something. Right?
O.O. Howard,
O. Howard,
who was a general in the Civil War.
Okay.
A lot of people think Howard was an
black
African American. He was not. He was,
Right.
he was a general in the Civil War.
Okay. Otis
But
Oliver or something, his name?
Yeah.
Otis Oliver Howard. Okay.
Right. But then you look at the Reconstruction, Hayes, Tilden compromise. Hayes agreed to be president if he could get the Southern or the former slave states votes for the electoral college. He would pull the troops out. So
Okay.
all the advancements that had been made, the promise that these guys made to Hayes, in all fairness to Hayes, was that they would do right by the former slaves, that they would treat them as citizens of the United States and do the rest. The minute he pulls them out, they double-crossed him.
Okay.
And the black codes, Delaware was the first state to actually implement black codes,
Black codes?
which said you can't be here, you can't be there, you got to go to the back.
Really?
Oh yes, Delaware was very.
Delaware's a
keen on-
racist. You think there's still a lot of racism here in Delaware?
Of course there are, all over the country.
Did you experience racism as an African American mayor, right? I'll joke with you when I say
Not
you know
openly.
you passed the brown paper bag test. I couldn't pass it.
Not
you know,
openly. Did I experience when I first came here? Yes, but
Yeah, okay.
not after. I
After you got in, okay.
People understand structure more and the way things are and,
Okay.
and could deal. Even though, you know, you look what they did to Obama, which was the minute he got in, they tried to crucify him, and they did. And my problem with Obama was I would have fought back.
We know you'll fight back.
There's no such thing as we got to work together.
Right.
And you're slapping me in my face. Well, I'm sorry. I'm gonna slap you back.
Right. Well, I think no one questions your ability to stand up for yourself.
You got to
know.
fight. There's no thing like. But the thing is that every time there's been advancements, there's been a reaction to those advancements. If you take the '60s and the anti-poverty and all the things that Johnson did, and you saw the recent Selma, even though there's a conflict about what Johnson thought or did. But after that, there was a reaction to all of that in the 80s.
Okay.
Our unemployment in the 40s was up to 60% among African Americans. So was there goodness that came out of all this? Of course there was.
What's the unemployment now?
It's probably about 15, 16. It's 20% depending on what age group you're talking about.
Okay.
But it's very high. My point is that we have a lot of good people doing good things in this community. It's a good city. I don't care, you know, people concentrate on the crime and what that. There's a reason for that. And we're not paying attention. And we got to understand, I don't have to agree with you to work with you.
Right.
Businesses don't like each other, but they work together.
Right.
Politicians the same way. We think we got to agree to everything. No, we don't.
Okay.
We never did. In the 60s, I can tell you, there were the Panthers, there was the Separatists, there was the Integrationists.
Right.
There was a Pan-Africanist, which I believed in more around the
That's why you had to have an afro and a dashiki and stuff?
Not really, but I had one anyway.
You had
But I believe that we are all connected, regardless of what part of the world we come from
Right.
and what happens. Because if you look how Africa was treated, African nations didn't become free till about the 1960s.
Right.
What happened with us about the 1960s?
Right.
So that we really are connected in a world-wide situation.
Right.
So I think Wilmington, and people talk about the crime. We've got to deal with the fact of the cause of the crime, not the fact of the after effect.
Okay.
And you think
Okay, so
you're
let's
gonna
get to
send
what's
police.
the causes of the crime, you would say?
Causes of crime. Education is a real big.
Right.
Poverty is real big.
Right.
If you don't have the skills or the educational background today in our economy,
can't
which is
get a
a
job.
technical economy,
Right.
you're not going to get into
Right.
it. So we have a 60% dropout rate for our kids attending schools. We don't need 4 districts. That's one of the bad things here.
Right.
But you can't have a 60%
So when you were
dropout
mayor,
rate.
did people come to you and say, we want a Wilmington school district? Did you fight to try to get one, or what was your position on that?
No. Wilmington can't sustain a school district.
Why?
Economically, you go broke.
Okay.
That's all there is to it. I mean, look at Philadelphia begging the state now, give us money, we need X millions of dollars, and the
Right.
state's sitting back saying, well, I don't know. You know, once you do that, you can't be foolish about what you want.
Okay.
You got to know what's good for you and what's not good for you. We need to have good people that understand education, and we have them who work on education, but who we've got to understand. However our kids get educated, it doesn't matter if it's a Catholic school system, private school system, charter schools, or but the public schools is in disarray, and it's failed our kids.
Right, absolutely.
Period. And
Well, they're attacking, and I'm not to cut you off. I'm just going back and forth as a host, so I can just do my host job,
Do
right?
whatever you want.
But a lot of people feel that the charter schools are now the black schools who are trying to reach, helping black kids in the black community, because most charter schools, most in Wilmington, are black schools, and they're attacking them and closing them down, saying that they are failing. But to me, all the kids who are coming have already been failed
They've
by
already
the public
failed
school system
Well,
before
they've
they got
already
there.
failed before they get to school. That's the reality.
Okay.
The kids need to have early childhood education, number one, before they get into the school, because they're not equal when they enter schools, whether it's first grade, kindergarten, or what have you. That's a biggie.
Right.
The other is that, to me, for an economic purpose, Wilmington should not be the one talking about we don't want any more charter schools.
Right.
It's a foolish statement. Why? Do you realize how many people come into the city to be teachers, to be administrators, pay the wage taxes, take care of a lot of kids? We're talking about they're segregating. Our schools are already segregated
Okay.
with the Neighborhood School Act. They were segregated in the 80s.
Okay.
That's when it began. It went back, was in the 80s, has been. I don't fight for anybody that's hurting our kids, and you can't get me to say that charter. If you take Moyer's, for example, Moyer was dealing with kids that were way behind, and they were bringing them up slowly. The problem Moyer had was it wasn't meeting the state standard.
Right.
So
Right.
look, by the state standard, you're failing.
Right.
By educational standards, they were
succeeded.
successful.
Right.
So we got to look at what's really successful and what's really failing, and we're not doing that. And until we do, we're going to be in this battle about. Tell me, why would you send your kids to school that's failing 6 out of 10?
And what school is that?
The public schools.
All of them, right?
Public schools.
Right.
Now, are all charter schools successful? No, absolutely not. But if you look at the Catholic school system, which has been teaching African American children, Spanish, Hispanic kids, Asian kids for years, you don't
With
hear
religion in schools.
But you don't hear them say, "Oh, we can't teach those kids. They're acting up. They're doing it." Da 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 da.
Right.
No, that's not true. Well, if they can do it, what's wrong with the public school system not being able to do it? You know, the 9 that you talked about, those are very brave people. They had to take
That
abuse.
was man.
You got to give Eisenhower credit, but Eisenhower didn't want that decision by the Supreme Court. He was furious at Warren for making that decision to desegregate the schools, that they were
Right.
separate but equal was not equal. But when those children tried to go to school, and the states are the worst. Don't give me that stuff about governors and
Right.
all. States are the worst.
Okay.
They stood in the way of our progress for centuries.
Right.
The states,
Meaning like state government
state government.
is over city government.
Look at the governors: Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas. All those guys stood up. You ain't coming in our school.
Yeah.
Segregation now and segregation forever. I mean,
Right.
who were doing that?
Right.
Governors
Right.
and general assemblies of the states.
Right.
Who took the cases to court over and over again? Do you realize that your parents' taxes were paying for the state of Delaware to take the case to court to knock down the desegregation altogether and to go back to segregated schools?
No.
And remember that Howard was the only school, or Delaware State, for African Americans in this.
But they did better. To me, my grandmother, all of her children graduated from high school. Everybody back then pretty much graduated from high school. It was almost a norm that you were going to graduate from high school, where now it's almost a norm that you don't.
But here's the difference. There was no place for teachers, African American teachers. They could be PhDs, they could have been masters at whatever they were teaching.
Right.
They had to teach in those schools for much, much less salary than white. When we desegregated in Wilmington, teachers were making more money than any other teachers in the state of Delaware.
Okay.
Wilmington had a good public school system.
Okay.
Deseg did destroy it and created all kind of headaches for us. But what I'm saying about the point, the state is using your money to fight against your rights.
Right. Okay.
Pure and simple, they did.
All right, that's education, right?
Yeah.
Because I got you here. It's kind of tough. You got a busy schedule. You're a busy man now, retired.
Well, I'm staying out of everybody's way.
What, you staying out of everybody's way. This is the thing. So now you're not the mayor, right?
Right.
So now we look at the things. A lot of people use an office, and sometimes I would say it too before I know a lot about it, that you spent a lot of energy and focus on developing the riverfront and developing other things besides working on the communities. And your response to that?
We worked on the communities too. We did like almost 7,000 housing units.
Okay.
I mean, we did a lot of things in the neighborhood, but we dealt with all three: neighborhoods, riverfront, downtown.
Okay.
You have to.
Right, but how did you keep businesses in Wilmington, or do you want to take credit for that, or was it just the way things work? Because now it seems like businesses are flying as quick as they can get their bags packed, leaving Wilmington.
I think part of that is economics, but you got to realize Wilmington's going to change and it's going to get better.
Okay.
It's going to be a better city. What I can differ with the mayor over anything you can say. I can differ.
Okay, but listen.
But
if you had to
that's
run
not the
against
point.
if you had to run against the mayor again, could you beat him?
Oh, I could beat anybody I run against. Period.
So, does the charter say you can't run again?
No, I could, but I'm not. I have no interest in running for office.
Do you have interest in coming back into city government in any kind of capacity?
No.
With the knowledge that you have and the skill set that you have, do you think you can help?
I offered
someone?
help to any administration, period. Because I don't think that you can sit and blame the mayor for every god-awful thing.
Because they blamed you. They blamed you for everything, right?
Sure they did. But the mayor is not the arbitrator of whether or not you have poverty.
Right.
Or whether or not you have jobs,
Right.
or whether or not you have businesses.
Right.
That's really it's outlandish to even think that.
Right.
Can they help? Of course. We worked with the business community, period. We worked with people who wanted to develop, period. If you wanted to develop in our city, we're not going to stop you, because one of the biggest anti-crime things that you could do is build new housing, period.
Okay.
Whether people know it or not. But yeah, the riverfront took off. We had a great run on that. We had a great run on downtown. But I'm telling you, the Pacini Poland Group is already doing, you look at 9th Street, at 9th and Market, they're doing both sides. They're also going to do an apartment building where the old...
on third, in between 3rd and Market?
Where the old garage was at 9th and
Oh, right there. Okay.
9th and Shipley.
Where they're doing something, or somebody's doing something down in between King and Market on
Yeah,
3rd.
Right. And they're
put some
doing
apartments
7th and Market. I mean, all of that. You need critical mass of people living in downtown Wilmington.
Some say that they're building these places so that whites could come into the city and end up taking over the vote population.
If you're going to play that game and be scared of that, you're stupid. Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm just the host here. I'm just saying that. I'll let you know I'm the host.
Yeah,
now.
but I ain't
I'll
got
let you-
time for stupidity. People
Okay.
who want to believe that,
Right.
fine. Go ahead and believe that. If
Do
you're
you think
dumb enough to do
Wilmington's
that.
ever going to become a majority white city?
No.
Do you think?
I think it will become, there'll be more people of the middle class and upper middle who will move into
Well,
the city.
we once had, like 10 years ago, our population in Wilmington was bigger than it is now. And instead, the population has
Well, it was
dropped.
100,000 back during World War II and afterwards.
what's it, like 70 now?
After the I-95, which destroyed neighborhoods, after the urban renewal, which destroyed the east side completely with Project A, and then West Center City with the bed sheet, the flip-flop, buying up all those homes and supposedly rehabbing. They never did that. Then the riots kicked it in the teeth and caused that.
Okay.
And then there was the malls and suburban development. Everything that's happened to the city has been outside of the city's control.
So Market Street was thriving and popular before they had the malls and people had to go uptown
Right.
and shop.
That's where people went from all over the state. I mean, look at Wilmington Dry Goods. You could go to Dry Goods and get things cheap which you couldn't get anywhere. You had buses coming from Jersey and Maryland just to shop at the Wilmington Dry Goods. Downtown
And that was you here when that was a segregated store?
No.
Okay. You had just got here when it was.
I just got here when things were changing.
Okay.
But the point is that Market Street was basically made up of family businesses.
Okay.
People, families own most of the businesses in Market Street. Even the banks were owned by private individuals of Delaware. When it changed was after the riots. People started, but they had the malls to go to. They had the suburban development to go to.
Right.
But people forget that it wasn't just white flight, it was African American flight too.
Okay.
The middle class moved also out of the city, who were African American who could afford it.
Okay.
So the city was dwarfed of middle class and upper middle class people. The rich had already gone.
All right, so we're running out of time, right? So I want to talk about this, right? The Hope Commission. The thing that I feel in our community that we have lost, that young black men have lost when we look at all this violence, this crime, is they've lost hope, right? You guys established the Hope Commission. How successful do you think the Hope Commission is? I mean, you got to be honest. Be honest with me.
Be honest with you. Well, Charles and all of them know that they didn't do the things I wanted them to do. And we had meetings. I wrote them and all.
So
like
on a
that.
1 to 10, what would you give them? You're a straight shooter.
2.
A 2.
Well, they did the thing on the prisoners coming out. That was a big.
But not one prisoner's been over there yet.
They did well. Oh yeah, it's open. But I mean, they did
It's
well.
open, but what are they doing to work with the prisoners? They did all this, but they got all this funding.
I can't tell you because I haven't done an analysis of that.
Okay.
But they had good projects. They were supposed to do model projects, which they could implement elsewhere. That's where the failure came. They did not do that.
Listen, let me tell you, I don't hate on anyone getting some money because God knows I want to get some money, right? And you can't make it this world without money.
Yeah.
But that man has came in, the Hope Commission's been up for like 12, 13 years and got like $100,000 for each year to do absolutely nothing. If we add up that money, that is like $1.2 million that's done absolutely nothing.
Well, I would take issue that they've done what they ran into was a very reality problem. Was they were asking people to cooperate and change, and people didn't do it, and they didn't have the money to make them. Money makes people change.
Okay.
If you sat here today and said, I have $5 million to work with, you'll be inundated with projects.
How do you feel about consultants? One last question before we go. How do you feel about calling in $200,000 worth of consultants to tell us what's wrong with the
Studies
city?
have already been done about what's wrong.
Okay.
The Hope Commission actually did a very good study on what's wrong. There's been other studies on what's wrong. If you really want to find out.
Do we need to spend $200,000 for consultants right now to tell us what's wrong?
Not at all.
That's what I thought.
Look at the census data if you really want to find out.
Hey, hold on. They give me the signal. Mayor Baker, thank you for coming on the show. I've enjoyed you, man. I enjoyed you so much, and thank you for all that you taught me. Viewers, I know sometimes I need an hour show because there's many, many more questions I would like to ask him and many more questions you probably would like to be asked. And hopefully when I see you, you could tell me and I could talk him into coming on again and doing another segment. Thank you. This is my time. I'm Richard Leroi, and I will see you guys next week.